Oh, okay. And then these epigenetic modulations is actually the change in the gene expressions without changing the DNA. So it's just like a switch on and switch off button in your genes. So in these B pictures, sorry, I couldn't see my pointer. Why? There's no pointer here. So this B image is a histone. Histone is actually a protein that regulate epigenetic modulations. So DNA is the protein where histone is the protein where DNA will wrap up and make a chromatin. This around they call it chromatin. So there are some modification in histone that we call as acetylations. For example, there are several type of modification as as you can see in this table. Acetylation, deacetylation, methyl acetylation, and phosphorylation. So this type of tag, this chemical attached to the histone, will will determine what will happen to our genes, whether the gene can be read or whether the genes will be silenced. So this is very important. And it found that the outcome of these epigenetic modulations and outcome is very important for a lot of aspect, including, for example, in this case, it's also included in human molecular biology, disease, epidemiology, and also genetics. And this is actually a big opportunity for us as a researchers, or maybe you in Indonesia. It's a big opportunity for us to investigate and to study about epigenetic modulations. And we can find a novel therapy, how to tackle, how to cure some disease by studying this epigenetic modulation and also histone modifications. So, this epigenetic alteration is not only important for disease progression, it's also important for drug discovery developments. So, in conventional way, we use observation base in order to find a drug or to find some new compounds. So actually the epigenetic modulations, they also important for us to how we can design the molecule to target specific pathway. So in this case, in the right side, if you can see, this is blue is target path. So if we can design which molecule and which pathway, we can determine which target we want to solve. So by studying this epigenetic modulation, we can move from the observation base to the target base, which are, of course, this approach is more precise and also more personalized. Like now stem cell, there's a personalized medicine. So one drugs may be good for someone, but not good for other people. So that's called is personalized medicine. Interestingly, you see in here, we found that, if we look at some organ in our body, including heart, brain, lung, and other part of organ in your body, we found that actually they have a similar molecular roots in these functions. So, for example, in hearts, they probably during the time or also because of some stress, oxidative stress, some epigenetic alterations, or maybe the mutations in their mitochondria or in the genes, this heart will become hypertrophy and finally become heart failures. So maybe in Indonesia, they call it as a gagal jantung, right? Or heart attack, they get a heart attack. And also in the brain and other part of our organ, they face the similar conditions. So from this, we can suggest that even when you are healthy, you don't have any disease when you're young, but during the time when you're getting older and older, your body functions, your heart, your brain, or other part of your body, the function will gradually decline because of aging. So this suggests that aging and chronic disease share a common molecular backgrounds, which can be targeted, of course, through this epigenetic therapy. They can change the phenotype of your body. So, heart failures or gagal jantung in Indonesia is actually, what can I say, is the most prominent cause of death in the world. So what actually happened to your heart? So your heart will face stress, even it's a physiological stress or pathological stress because of you doing sports, or you get stress, hypertension, myocardial infarction to your heart. So your heart should adjust. They become hypertrophy. They become larger, bigger. Why? Because they need to fulfill the need of our body of oxygens and the nutritions they need to pump to all of the body. So this is actually initially is just compensatory remodeling. However, during the time when you get a lot of stress for a long time, this hypertrophy will become heart failures. This will be a problem because this not only happened to your organ, but of course it happened in your cellular levels, including in this case cardiomyocytes and fibroblasts. And we have tested actually several compounds. So in this slide, I show you only one compound. Actually consists of several polyphenols from cacao. So we have tested that this polyphenol from cacao significantly can reduce cardiomyocyte hypertrophy that induced by phenylephrine. So you see in this left side, left side of me, yeah, you see the PE. This is the image of heart cell or cardiomyocyte cells. In this case, hypertrophy caused the cell size become bigger. And then treating with polyphenol from cacao, they significantly reduce the size of our heart cell. So you can see from this image and also graph. And then we also check the gene expressions. So these two genes, A and BNP, is a marker, genes marker for the hypertrophy or for the heart failure disease. So hypertrophy can cause the increase of a gene expression of ANF and BNP. And these compounds significantly reduce the expression, which means it's good for you for us. So we also investigate using Western blot analysis that we found that the mechanism how actually this polyphenol can reduce cardiomyocyte hypertrophy. They actually suppress the ARC1-2 phosphorylations in the cytoplasma, and subsequently they also suppress the GATA4 phosphorylation in the nucleus. So this is in vitro study. And in vivo study, we also tested this compound using a mice. So we induce the mice, we operate and make the heart become hypertrophy. The size will be bigger. And then we administer this compound for about 8 weeks. Every day we feed the mice with the polyphenols, and then we check the cardiac functions after 8 weeks. So in the left, upper left, you can see that this using echocardiography, we found that cacao-bean polyphenol is good for your heart functions by reducing the left ventricular wall thickness and also fractional shortening. And then in the left, in the middle, you see the heart size. There are a TAC plus vehicle is a group where the heart is become almost heart failure, thus the size is bigger. And then by adding polyphenol from cacao, the size becomes smaller, near to the control, negative control, or in this case is sham plus vehicles. So we also checked the gene expression as well. They found significantly reduced the gene expression of ANA, BNP, and also beta-MHC. We then do immunohistology to check the heart's tissue. We slice the heart and then we stain them. We see that they have a lower, smaller myocardial diameters. And also, if you see another image, is a sham. There's the blue colors. This is a fibrosis in your heart. So if you have a lot of blue color in your heart, which means you have a lot of fibrosis, this can make your heart become stiff it becomes stiff and you cannot pump properly at maximum. They're very weak heart. And we confirm also with the gene expression with RT-PCR, and we find the mechanism similarly with the in vitro study by suppressing ALK1/2 phosphorylations. And moreover, we also check the histone. There are some histone that related with heart failures. In this case, we check histone 3. There are two types of histone 3. In this case, is H3K9 and H3K122. So we confirm that phenylephrine stimulations induce histone acetylations. So in this cardiomyocyte, which mean by inducing phenylephrine to the heart cell, the gene expressions of cardiomyocyte hypertrophy increase and also histone increase during the time. And interestingly, using another model, we actually using rat model instead of mice. We're using rat model to study about this histone role in the heart disease. We found that they actually they work differently. I mean, these H3K9 acetylations, they have an increase before the stage of heart failures. So there's in the middle stage, still when left ventricular postural thickness becomes stiff. So that's where the H3K9 acetylation increase. However, for the H3K122, they more express when the heart failure stage. So we confirm this with gene expression with RT-PCR and also Western blotting, as you can see from the image of below image of this slide. And then by doing this, actually, we already found some novel epigenetic regulations mechanism for heart failures. So the stress to our heart or hypertrophic stress will cause P300 histone acetyl transfers. And then this histone acetyl transfer has increased the expressions of some marker that will promote the cardiac hypertrophy and finally become heart failures. In this case, is ANA, BNP, and beta-HCG. And now, if we can inhibit these P300 inhibitions using whether that is using small molecules inhibitor, natural, or other synthetic compounds, of course, we can improve or we can prevent the prognosis of this disease, especially for cardiovascular disease. So this is a very good finding and good strategy for the next researcher to find a disease for heart failures. So we have tested a lot of compounds from jamu. You know, in Indonesia, we know we are very famous because of the jamu. So I have selected several compounds from jamu. And in my previous laboratory, we have a curcumin. Curcumin, and also nobiletin, this is from citrus. They are very prominent compounds that affect a lot of tissue and can cure a lot of disease in vitro study. And during this, a lot of compounds we have screened and tested, we found that these three groups, these three compounds has beneficial effects for the heart failures. So even they have working in different mechanisms. For example, the CBP, they mechanism is they inhibit the phosphorylation and ALK1/2 and GATA phosphorylations, and alpha-mangostin they suppress NOx4 ROS productions, and zerambone they significantly inhibit the AKT phosphorylations. So even in vitro they succeed to suppress that, and we also confirm that in the mice in vivo study they show the similar results. So if you are interested about further about this experiment, you can check several on my paper. I have sent you the links you can just search on NCBI. So we know that when you look out more, not only about hearts, but also other part of organs, actually all of this molecular backgrounds is related with aging. If you see from this table, this is molecular hallmark for aging. So even when you are healthy people, there is epigenetic alterations happens even when we are still kids, So from in the left here, there's epigenetic regulation. I'm sorry, I cannot move my pointer. So in the left box, in the purple box, you can see there is a epigenetic alteration happen even in the baby, and then more worsening, and it become the cellular senescence. Your cell cannot be renewed, and there are some mitochondrial dysfunction happen there. And finally, of course, there are a lot of cell senescence, and your organ will not be worked properly in your body. So when you're getting old, for example, in the brain, so I was talking about heart, but this time, if it related with your brains, when you're getting old, you become forget something. You forget many things and forget anything, right? So this affects your neuron actually. So when I was in Riking, I did experiment about neurons. And then, of course, in other, COVID-19. So the COVID-19 also, they are very sensitive for elder people. So all the elder people, they are more easier infected by the COVID-19 because the virus will induce the senescence, SARS-P, and also it becomes cytokine storm. So this is why we want to say that aging is actually important part study that might be suppressed not only one disease, but we can, you know, we can prevent other kind of disease if we can at least slow down the aging. And this is the history of epigenetic regulations that related with aging and other disease. And the most recent is they try to develop you see in 2021 they try to develop aging vaccines in this case. And then a lot of researchers over the world try to investigate about disease, try to find a new cure, trying to find the disease mechanism using many kind of models, whether they're using C. elegans, using fly, using rodents, or maybe using humans as well. So they found some compounds that are prominent that might be work to the many kind of models. For example, in this left side, you can see resveratrols. So that is actually important to enhance DNA repair and also for mitochondria functions. And curcumin, as I mentioned before, this is also a very prominent compound to suppress HSP and also inflammations. However, in curcumin case, we have a little bit problem about the solubility. The curcumin is difficult to soluble, so it is not really friendly to make medicine from curcumin. And then fisetin and quercetin as well, they can eliminate senescent cells. And then butyrate, HDAC inhibitor, they can restore gene expressions and metabolic hemostasis. So taking together from all this image, you can see that functional natural compounds, they can act as a multi-target epigenetic modulators. They can restore metabolic and also transcriptional balance during aging. So you need to remember all these compounds. So in conclusions, you can see that a lot of approach have been done in order to tackle a disease And then using a small molecules, and also there are some reprogramming, like using a stem cell. We can generate anything from stem cells. And then there is a senolytic therapist that can remove your aging cells. And of course, we have to keep, have healthy lifestyles. So all of this, by targeting this reversible nature of epigenetic alterations, we hope that this is not only to treat disease, but also rejuvenate, keep you young if possible. This is shifting global health, of course, from disease management to healthy longevity. I think that's all for today, my talks. So I would like to say my thanks to Professor Sugimoto for having permission for me to do this lecture, and also Professor Tatsuya Morimoto, and also lab member me in NCGG, in RIKEN as well, and also in Shizuoka University. That's all for today, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sari. I think that was a very comprehensive presentation. And I thought that for some participants, it is probably quite new, but you explain it with clearly. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we know about the cellular mechanism underlying aging and age-related disease and novel epigenetic regulation mechanism of heart failure, and even the approach toward epigenetic-based innovative therapy for healthy longevity content. So now we would like to allow you to have a discussion with Dr. Sari. So we will now open the floor for a discussion and question and answer session. Participants joining on site may raise their hands, and while our online participants can type question in the chat box.
Yeah, in Indonesia also okay.
Yes, so from the narasumber kita langsung ya, boleh Bapak Ibu yang ada di ruangan dan juga mungkin yang bergabung di dalam Zoom meeting, jadi boleh bertanya jika mungkin ragu udah bertanya dalam bahasa Inggris ya, Ai. Jadi kami punya panggilan ini, jadi Dokter Sari ini kita panggil Ai ya. How's Japan today, Ai?
Japan is cold today.
Oh, school. Jambi is hot. Oke. Bapak Ibu yang ada di ruangan, silahkan yang ingin bertanya bisa mengangkat tangannya. Dan juga mungkin bagi yang ada di ruang Zoom, bagi presenter ataupun peserta online, itu juga bisa untuk chat ya kan, melalui chat box. Nanti akan kita bacakan atau mungkin menggunakan fitur raise hand. Silahkan. Atau mungkin sambil dimulai ya. So, Dr. Sari, from your perspective, so how can researchers in developing countries, maybe especially in Indonesia, because you know that we have this more limitation, that's right, especially about the facility, for example, our lab. So how to accelerate the translation of epigenetic and natural compound discoveries into accessible clinical practice? Maybe you can answer for my question first. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the question. That actually is a difficult question to answer. I mean, as I mentioned in my second or third slides, research facilities is very important to get a success doing experiments. But in our case, Indonesia, maybe we can just start over from the observation base. I mean, you see, maybe previously in our university, you extract the compounds, right? You extract the compounds from plants or other thing, and then you isolate. That at least you can, at first you try to find the molecules, or you can find the compounds that have effective. And then if you're using target base, you have to, you have to certain target. You have to point out what target you want. For example, I want to find the disease for what disease now is not easy. Maybe the easier is antioxidant, maybe, right? Antioxidant activity. And then you can just taste it using the I forget the name. What is the DPPH? Yeah, that's the easiest. And you can also do like laboratory. Or another way to do that, you have to collaborate, of course, with other institutions that have more facilities. For example, we can collaborate from Jambi and then in Japan, and you can come do research in here. Sometimes that collaboration is very important to extend to research and to find, of course, disease, to find novel therapy, you know. So you have to make more connections because we have a limitation in our country, in Indonesia. We have a limit budget, a limit equipment, and limit reagents, and we take a long time to even to order something. If we want to order, I don't know, some chemicals, it took in then so long, about maybe 1 month, 2 months. In that case, our research, you know, we have lose our motivations. So one of the important thing, you have to make many collaborations with other institutions that have more facilities. For example, maybe with I know what is the name now, BRIN. In Indonesia, we have a BRIN now, so you have to collaborate with BRINs or with other countries. That is the most important part to do for country like us, I think.
Oke, thank you, Dr. Sari. Jadi begitu ya Bapak Ibu, jadi sebenarnya terbuka sekali kesempatan kita untuk melakukan riset bersama. Mungkin next nanti kita bisa dengan NCGG, ya Dr. Sari.
Oh, no problem.
Baik, sepertinya sudah ada pertanyaan ya di menu chat box, bisa dilihat kan? Oh, belum ya. Oke, sambil menunggu Bapak Ibu yang ada di ruangan silahkan yang bertanya, ingin bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia tidak apa-apa, ya silahkan, biar tidak susah-susah.
Ya,
Nah,
boleh.
jadi deg-degan ya kalau nanya dalam bahasa Inggris. Okay, Dr. Sari, actually I also interested about your previous study about curcumin. So how you synthesize the curcumin? Is it in Japan? I think it's, Japan have good facilities, yeah. So,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
yeah, next.
Yeah, I actually didn't synthesize the curcumin by myself, so we get our compounds from other company. So some provides, for example, this cacao bean polyphenols. So we actually get these compounds from Meiji. So Meiji is a company in Japan. It's a more chocolate company. Ya, jadi kita dapat polyphenolsnya dari perusahaan Meiji.
Oke, thank you. Jadi tidak mengekstrak secara langsung ya. Jadi itu merupakan isolate yang sudah ada dari perusahaan Meiji tadi ya. Baik,
Ya.
silakan Bapak Ibu yang ada di Zoom meeting bisa mengirimkan pertanyaan dari peserta offline mungkin ada, silakan.
Ayo, harus berani.
Ya,
Ayo mau maju.
susah lah menghubungi Dokter Ai ya. Dokter Ai ini luar biasa apa nama experience-nya ini dan beliau
Ya.
sekarang menempati eh, apa namanya researcher di NCGG. Jadi Bapak Ibu, jadi mumpung ada kesempatan silahkan bertanya. Ada?
Oh, yang mau berkunjung ya ke Jepang,
Ya,
boleh.
silahkan. Oke, nggak ada nih. Ya udah, nggak ada. Ada sebentar malu-malu.
Ya, jangan malu. Kita
Silahkan.
harus biasakan, sayang ya international
Ya,
conference.
boleh.
Ya, tanya.
Silahkan.
Cik. Baik, terima kasih atas kesempatannya Dr. Fitri, Dr. Nurmila Sari. Saya ingin bertanya tentang di slide PPT Dr. Nurmila Sari ada drug discovery development. Nah, di situ tuh saya tertarik terkait ada target base yang mana menggunakan animal model secara in vivo. Nah, kami kurang mengerti mekanismenya bagaimana. Apakah boleh dijelaskan kembali secara kami kurang paham di mana kayak menggunakan activity selectivity propertinya, exposure toxicity-nya itu menggunakan apa gitu. Terima kasih.
Apakah terdengar, Ai?
Pertanyaannya bagian mana yang nggak dimengerti? Tadi putus-putus suaranya.
Pada drug discovery development kan menggunakan animal model ya secara in vivo. Nah, di situ ada kandidatnya menggunakan exposure toxicity. Nah, di situ tuh menggunakan eh, kom- senyawa apa gitu untuk membuat animal model tersebut.
Oh, ini sebenarnya terima kasih atas pertanyaannya ya sebelumnya. Jadi ini sebenarnya tergantung dari eksperimen, tujuan eksperimennya apa. Jadi misalnya kalau dalam plasmid, pernah dengar plasmid nggak? Jadi kalau misalnya kita mau menggunakan plasmid, nah kita bisa seleksi mana aja sih yang berpotensi, mana aja sih yang enggak, atau yang resisten. Salah satunya misalnya dengan puromycin. Atau kalau misalnya untuk animal hewan, kalau untuk hewan seperti tikus, mencit itu kita bisa gunakan transgenic mice. Eh, Tikus mencit transgenik ya, bahasa Indonesia ya, mencit transgenik. Jadi transgenik itu mereka sudah dimodifikasi genetiknya, bisa menggunakan exposure toxicity, misalnya salah satunya misalnya dengan metformin. Jadi misalnya tikus itu dengan pendekatan, sebenarnya saya juga tidak melakukan ini ya, tapi secara general kita kita tinggal beli ya. Kalau di sini kita beli transgenic mice-nya sudah ada, mau mau mencit seperti apa gitu. Mencit yang punya genetik yang seperti apa. Jadi kita bisa tentukan mau pilih yang mana. Misalnya kalau sekarang saya di sini saya menggunakan apa sih, ARF19. Jadi itu apa ya? Salah satu genes yang, bahasa Indonesianya apa? Yang I forgot the English. One of the genes that do not need for epistema. Jadi apa? Jadi dia itu adalah genes yang tidak salah satu indikasi genes kalau kita itu punya penyakit episema paru-paru ya. Jadi bagaimana cara membuat transgenetic mice ini adalah dengan uh, menggunakan metformin salah satunya, atau other compound seperti doxorubicin. Nah, itu juga bisa digunakan untuk membuang ARF19 itu. Jadi itu tergantung dari tujuannya sebenarnya. Toxicity-nya seperti apa. Nah, kalau misalnya buat kanker juga tergantung, misalnya kanker. Nah, sel kanker itu kita punya banyak senyawa atau banyak compound, punya library, kemudian kita seleksi menggunakan salah satu sel kanker. Nah, dari sekian ribu atau dari sekian puluh, kita bisa seleksi jadi beberapa beberapa dan akhirnya kita punya satu compound kandidat. Nah, ini kemudian baru kita lakukan selectivity test, activity test, dan juga property test. Ya, jadi dari awal sudah ditentukan targetnya apa gitu. Apa mungkin punya spesifik target dari yang mau dilakukan, targetnya apa, tujuannya apa gitu. Itu paling penting untuk diketahui. Ini kan ini adalah general rules dari drug discovery development. Jadi hampir secara konvensional kita di Indonesia mostly kita pakai yang observation base. Jadi kita lihat, oh, secara tradisional digunakan buat obat apa, obat A, obat B, obat C. Kemudian kita ekstrak, kita isolate, kemudian kita tes apakah dengan antibakteria, kemudian bisa dengan tikus atau mencit. Nah, baru sebatas itu yang paling banyak digunakan kalau di kita di Indonesia. Nah, kalau yang lebih lagi, kalau misalnya kita mempelajari epigenetic modulation, ya, perubahan epigenetics itu, nah kita bisa langsung tentukan targetnya yang mana, kemudian dari situ akan tahu, oh berarti apa nih, Eh, bagaimana nih kita bisa sintesis kalau yang bisa melakukan biosintesis compound yang punya SIR, Structure Activity Relationship. Nah, mereka bisa desain compoundnya sehingga mau target seperti apa, mau compound yang seperti apa. Nah, itu bisa dilakukan. Nah, kemudian hewannya juga menggunakan transgenic mice, jadi lebih precise, lebih lebih tepat. Jadi tidak hanya apa wild type apa tikus yang normal yang dipakai kemudian diinduksi itu biasanya kadang bisa terjadi, kadang tidak terjadi. Nah, itu salah satu kekurangan kalau kita menggunakan indusernya mungkin dari luar ya. Nah, tapi kalau transgenic mice dari genetiknya sudah dimodifikasi, wah dia ini bakal si mencit ini akan punya penyakit A, si mencit B karena dibuang jeans yang ini, maka setelah beberapa minggu dia punya penyakit B, misalnya seperti itu. Mungkin seperti itu ya. I hope
Oke,
answer the
Dr.
questions.
Sari. Apakah sudah jelas tuh? Jelas sekali. Terima kasih, Dokter Sari. Oke, next question. Ada dari Zoom meeting? Apakah ada? Belum ada ya. Ini malu-malu pesertanya ya. Takut banget ya.
Sayang ya, udah jauh-jauh.
Iya, nggak apa-apa bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa ya. Nggak tahu
Iya.
audiens partisipan yang ada di hadir di ruangan masih ada pertanyaan. Oh masih ada. Nah ini baru mulai hangat ini. Ya
Iya.
silakan.
Tahu ada yang mau lanjut kuliah di Jepang, bisa tanya
Ya,
ya. Di luar
ngomong
out of topic
ngomong
tapi ya.
supervisor.
Oke.
Baiklah, terima kasih kepada Dr. Nurmila Sari. Presentasinya sangat menarik sekali. Tadi Dr. Nurmila Sari menjelaskan tentang dalam risetnya itu mengenai epigenetic ya modulation. Nah, eh, dalam risetnya Dr. Nurmila Sari dia menggunakan protein yaitu berupa histone sebagai epigenetic modulationnya di heart disease ya, Dok. Apakah ada protein lain selain histone yang bisa digunakan untuk epigenetic modulation untuk heart disease ini? Terus pertanyaan selanjutnya itu epigenetic modulation ini bisa atau tidak digunakan sebagai treatment di communicable disease seperti infectious disease begitu. Terima kasih.
Oke, silahkan Dokter Sari.
Okay, for the first question, untuk pertanyaan yang pertama tadi apa histon ya. Jadi mungkin ada salah paham ya untuk pengertian histon. Saya ulangi dalam bahasa Indonesia mungkin. So, ini karena kita ada plenary lectures, jadi ini kan lebih general ya, not specific to the some points. So, jadi tadi pertanyaannya histon. Jadi histon itu bukan digunakan untuk apa tadi pertanyaannya? Digunakan untuk apa tadi Bu moderator? Tadi saya belum catat. Jadi histon itu sebenarnya uh, ada di dalam tubuh kita. Dia itu protein yang akan selalu ada dalam tubuh kita. Jadi ibaratnya DNA, kita semua punya DNA ya, DNA. DNA kita itu sangat panjang, dia punya informasi genetik, dia seperti buku yang membuat oh bentuk hidung kamu seperti ini, bentuk mata kamu seperti ini, tinggi badan kamu segini. Jadi dia seperti manual books. Ya, itu ada di DNA kita. Nah, jadi karena DNA kita ini sangat panjang dan punya banyak informasi, mereka itu akan menggulung suatu protein supaya dia bisa compact. Nah, itu namanya histon. Nah, ketika DNA itu menggulung histon, ya ini kan histonnya bulat ya. Nah, dia menggulung histon. Nah, dia disebut kromatin. Nah, jadi dalam hal ini histon itu dia adalah natural, dia ada di dalam tubuh kita. Dia eh, tidak digunakan untuk mengobati atau itu bukan begitu maksudnya. Jadi saya pengen kamu paham bahwasanya histon itu sebenarnya protein yang memang sudah ada di dalam tubuh kita yang fungsinya itu untuk menggulung lah istilahnya ya, menggulung DNA yang ada dalam tubuh kita. Nah, kemudian ketika ada modifikasi atau ada tag ya, ada attach. Jadi ketika histon itu terasetilasi, ada gugus asetil, ada gugus metil, atau hilang gugus asetil, dan ada fosforilasi di histon itu, maka ini akan menentukan ekspresi dari suatu gen. Jadi gen itu fungsinya apa sih? Jadi gen itu seperti tadi, jadi manual book. Ini adalah manual book. Nah, ketika ada asetilasi, maka akan ini tergantung dari tempatnya posisinya di mana. Kalau misalnya tadi di jantung misalnya. Nah, itu dia posisinya ada pada histon protein histon 3 yang biasanya terekspresi atau tersilent. Artinya dia terinduksi atau dia terstop begitu ya. Terinduksi atau terstop. Nah, jadi ketika ada stres pada jantung, ada misalnya kalau misalnya kita olahraga ya, atlet itu biasanya ukuran jantungnya lebih besar daripada orang biasa. Nah, itu namanya physiological stress. Ya, dan itu bisa reverse ya, bisa kembali lagi. Tapi kalau pathological stress seperti misalnya kita punya hipertensi, kemudian punya stres yang lain pada pembuluh darah atau jantung. Nah, itu akan membuat eh, ekspresi dari histon meningkat, terutama histon 3 yang tadi ya saya jelasin hmm, di slide ini ya, histon 3 ya, histon 3 terutama H3 K9 sama H3K122. Jadi ini adalah protein pada histon itu terutama di bagian K3 H3K9 dan H3K122. Nah, mereka itu akan makan banyak keluar gitu loh. Bahasa mudahnya mereka banyak keluar si histon itu. Histonnya akan banyak, kemudian menyebabkan ekspresi dari gen-gen di sini ada ANF, BNP, beta MHC ya. Gen-gen ini menjadi keluar gitu. Jadi tubuh itu diperintahkan supaya mengeluarkan gen-gen ini ya. Nah, kemudian menyebabkan kondisi jantung kita menjadi lebih memburuk ya, jadi membesar. Nah, kalau sudah membesar awalnya dia mungkin seperti adjusting apa adaptasi ya. Adaptasi. Jadi gimana nih? Jadi tubuh itu diperintah gimana nih supaya oksigen kita tercukupi, darah kita mengantarkan nutrisi ke seluruh tubuh itu tetap cukup, maka jantung memaksakan diri dengan membesar, namanya hipertrofi. Nah, dia membesar untuk memenuhi kebutuhan tubuh terhadap hal itu. Nah, tapi lama-kelamaan karena terus stresnya ada, genes ini atau gen-gen yang disebabkan oleh asetilasi histon tadi, dia terus-menerus, maka lama-lama jantung kita akan kaku, mengeras. dia tuh nggak bisa lagi mompa, udah nggak elastis lagi, lama-lama jadi gagal jantung. Nah, jadi tapi yang paling penting adalah epigenetik. Perubahan epigenetik itu dia sifatnya reversible, dia tidak irreversible, dia bisa balik lagi. Jadi kita bisa memodif si histon tadi, apakah dengan memberikan obat sesuatu seperti tadi kita kasih kurkumin, polifenol, atau obat-obat yang lain atau perlakuan lain misalnya yang bisa membuat si histon tadi terdeasetilasi. Dia lepas, histonnya akan lepas dari si histon. Jadi ini si asetil yang warna pink ya, yang gambar B. Nah, itu akan hilang. Akan hilang, nah, menyebabkan prosesnya akan membaik gitu. Jadi eh, ekspresi gennya mulai berkurang dan akhirnya kondisinya membaik. Nah, itu sebenarnya yang coba saya tunjukkan tadi di slide tentang studi histon acetylation dan deacetylation pada penyakit jantung. Nah, jadi ini kondisi ini sebenarnya ada pada semua penyakit ya, bisa dengan epigenetic modulation itu perubahan-perubahan epigenetik itu bisa terjadi karena makanan, obat-obatan, karena lifestyle kita atau memang eh, yang apa di yang kita tidak tahu dari mana, tapi itu kan kondisi tubuh kita itu sangat kompleks ya, proses yang terjadi dalam tubuh itu kompleks. Nah, itu semua sifatnya irreversible kalau berhubungan dengan epigenetic modulations. Jadi kalau misalnya histon dimodifikasi, dia eh, kadang dia bisa on, bisa off ya, seperti asetilasi dan deasetilasi. Nah, kalau misalnya dia longgar nih, DNA-nya jadi longgar nih, ya karena deasetilasi DNA-nya lepas, jadi dia nggak kegulung lagi, otomatis dia bisa terbaca di dalamnya apa sih perintahnya, manualnya apa nih, disuruh ngapain nih si DNA-nya begitu. Nah, kalau ketika ada asetilasi, DNA-nya tergulung lagi di histon, di protein itu. Jadi dia nggak bisa dibaca, berarti jeansnya off. Kita nggak bisa baca nih. Jadi tubuh nggak bisa baca, dia harus ngapain tuh dia nggak bisa. Harus apakah dia harus di off kan, apa ini harus diproduksi atau ini harus dihentikan. Nah itu seperti manual books. DNA itu kan manual books ya. Nah histon ini dengan adanya modifikasi pada epigenetiknya, dia bisa berperan untuk apakah suatu penyakit bisa membaik atau memburuk begitu. Begitu ya.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sari. Well, it's nice, comprehensive answer. Sudah cukup, Bu? Oke, cukup. Okay, since we're running out of time, we will need to end the discussion of plenary session. For those who still want to ask question, maybe you can email Dr. Sari personally after the session. Well, please allow me to take some highlighted points from today's lecture. First, in context of novel epigenetic regulation mechanism of heart failure, preventing histon acetylation by inhibiting the HAT activity of P300 or activating HDACs can aid in the treatment of cardiac hypertrophy and heart failure. Well, I think it's a good strategy. From the previous presentation, like Dr. Sari said, for example, curcumin has a good cardiovascular effect. That's right, Dr. Sari?
Yes.
And the second, functional natural compounds can act as mild multi-target epigenetic modulators that restore metabolic and transcriptional balance during aging. And last, by targeting the reversible nature of epigenetic alterations through functional natural compounds, we can design innovative therapies that not only treat, but also rejuvenate, and it can shifting global health from disease management to healthy longevity. Okay, on behalf of all participants, I would like to thank Apoteker Nurmila Sari, Sarjana Farmasi, Master of Science Agriculture, Doctor of Philosophy for the excellent and insightful topic. We wish you a great success on finding many new drugs for the sake of human lives. And I think we have to give a warm applause for Dr. Sari to give the plenary lecture today. Thank you, Dr. Sari. I think
Thank
with
you. Thank you for having me.
yes, our collaboration for our next future. Okay, maybe yes. I think we will end this session, and now I will return to the session to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to the moderator and Apotheker Nurmilasari. And ladies and gentlemen, we will conduct a symbolic appreciation ceremony. We kindly request that the committee present the certificate of appreciation on the screen for a virtual handover. We would like to request Apotheker Nurmilasari, Sarjana Farmasi, Master of Science in Agriculture, Doctor of Philosophy, to please to open your camera and give us a smile for a virtual photo on the screen. Okay, please wait a moment. Okay, I will count down for a formal session first on 3, 2, 1. Okay, again with our moderator. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. Okay, once again. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you to our moderator and our lecturer today, Apotheker Nurmilasari, for your greatest material. And you may leave the Zoom if you have any question again.